Good evening, good evening. Come on in, come on in. Come on in, come on in. Tonight we are kicking off Sanctuary for the Disruptive Soul. Yes, we are, yes, we are. Thanks for joining. We're so glad that you're here. We're going to give about one more minute and then we're going to get started. I hope that you are enjoying this Resurrection Sunday. Then we can stop all that beeping and get started. We're going to let it beep. And then we'll get started. It's so good to see you all who are here. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to do this evening and to kick this off and launch this off. So if you're a disruptive leader and you know other disruptive leaders, go ahead and tag them. Tell them to come on in the room so that we could have a little conversation and I could tell you a little bit more about what's going to be happening on Sundays and Wednesdays as it relates to disruptive leaders and disruptive leadership. That alarm is almost finished. I thought I took care of it before 9 and it still came on. All right, I think we're good. So again, welcome to Sanctuary for the Disruptive Soul. My name is Dr. Danielle Green, otherwise known as Dr. G, and we're going to just have a little bit of conversation. This segment is for you, leaders like you, leaders who are visionaries, who push boundaries, called to lead through your purpose, and to deal with the messy middle that comes with change. You know, change it's inevitable, and even with it being inevitable, it's still messy. And so as disruptive leaders, we have to know how to navigate through the messy. And so for tonight's first session, I'm just so excited that you're here. And I think that's my soror who I see from Brooklyn, New York, who's in the house. It's so good to see you. We're going to wait until, not wait. As other people come in, they're just going to come in on the conversation. So part of this session is to get you prepped and ready every week as a disruptive leader. Usually around this time of night, we're kind of getting our mindset, trying to figure out how to get ourselves suited, booted, and ready to do the work that we do. And so each week, I'm going to give you an affirmation and a theme to think about in regards to your leadership and how you can navigate that space. And so, let's start with dropping a word for the week that you want to think about or consider for your leadership. What do you want your leadership commitment to be? Maybe it's resilience. Maybe it's being more focused. Maybe being more intentional or bold or rooted. So what word is going to anchor you this week? And what energy are you bringing into your leadership space? I know for me, with some things that are happening and going on, I want to continue to be bold, right? To speak those things that need to be spoken, to stand in my authentic truth, to call out and to question those things that are not right. So what's your word for this week? What are you standing on? I know for me, I'm going to be bold this week. I'm looking to be bold. And so as you're thinking about that, even if you don't have that word right now, think about what you could potentially have that word to be. And I'll ask for it again later on. Oh, enough and transition. We are enough. We are more than enough. And you know that transition piece is important, right? Because as a leader, you have to know when to transition, right? And you have to know how to navigate others through transition. So definitely understanding and knowing that you are enough, that you bring what needs to be brought to the table, and that you are doing what you can within your power, within your capabilities, and within your ability. And then knowing how and when to transition, and transitioning of people, places, and things. So this week's theme that I want you to think about as we go into this week is your vision is valid. Your vision is valid. And this week's affirmation to go with that is, I honor the vision placed within me even when others can't see it. I honor the vision that's placed in me even when others can't see it. So tonight, this is our first segment, and I thought it would be great for me to share a little bit of my leadership journey and my testimony this evening, just so that you get some perspective about why that is the theme, about your vision being valid, and why I have to honor the vision that I have, even when others don't see it. And so, for those of you who may or may not know me, I've been in the education space for almost 30 years. And so this part of my leadership testimony talks about my experience, some of my experience of becoming a principal. And so for those of you who are in the leadership space, you know, you can have a lot of different leadership capacities, but becoming a principal is a very unique one. And in my circumstance, it even had more uniqueness to it than the ordinary principal. So let me just share my story. There was no handbook where I was going. There was no roadmap where I was going. I was just assigned to a building that had some history and a future that no one really could see. And you probably like, what are you talking about, Dr. G? Well, I remember walking through the building, walking through the halls for the first time, knowing that I was going to be selected to be the principal of this particular school. And the building that I was assigned to was a building that was known for alternative education. And so that space had kind of been a place where hope was kind of quiet, kind of really went silent. Expectations were basically left outside the door because this building was known for being like the last stop. So after students in high school have already gone to their choice school and maybe didn't do well there, then they went to like their zone school or their home school and they didn't do well there. And now this building that I was in was kind of known as, this is it. And if you can't make it here, you're not going to make it anywhere. I wasn't handed a legacy. I was handed a blank slate, and I was told to build a school. This was a school for students who most, if not all of them, were already told no. And they were told no more times than they could count. My students were ages 15 to 21. Over 85% of them were already parents. A lot of them were working or had to work. They had been surviving systems that had written them off. Many of them were transitioning from juvenile justice or adult incarceration. Balancing court dates with class schedules and survival with state mandates. But here's the truth. All I had was a vision about creating a transformational high school that was going to target this special, unique population that was going to accelerate their learning experience so that they could transition out of high school in a quicker fashion. All of the students came with either 0 to 6 credits. Some were even coming from middle school, being overaged. I had to speak life into that situation. I had to communicate hope when there was nothing tangible to offer. I was just talking about, I'm opening this school. I'm creating this school. I've been assigned to this building. But again, there was nothing there. I had to speak opportunity when all they could see was more of the same. There were just spaces and places where these young people were being discarded to that wasn't working, just revolving and revolving and revolving and revolving in cycles. I had to speak with confidence because if I didn't believe that this school could exist, no one else would. I had to recruit every student that I had. I had to recruit every staff member. Conversation by conversation, phone call by phone call, sitting at kitchen tables, one meeting at a time, going to juvenile facilities and adult facilities, meeting my potential students who were going to be transitioning out. I didn't just tell them what we were building. I had to tell them who we were becoming. And then the realities came. We wound up transitioning into a building where there was already an alternative school. Our students had multiple gang affiliations, and some of the staff from the other school in the building didn't come with a collaboration mindset. They came with a competing mindset. So we all supposed to be doing the same type of work, but we were the new competition on the block. We wasn't just managing education. We were managing energy. Have you ever had to deal with other people's energy, especially when they think that they're in competition with you or they think that you're there to take their spot? It was territory war, it was turf war, and it was trauma war, all going on at the same time. And yet, we pressed on. I was the only administrator that year. Could you imagine starting up a high school from scratch, recruiting students, recruiting staff, pulling everything together, and no assistant principal? It's just me. I'm the only one leading the staff, supporting students, managing fights, like for real, managing fights, facilitating agency partnerships for housing, for counseling, for court compliance. I was the leader, the case manager, the coach, and sometimes the only one who said, you can still do this. I had a classification of students called VPI. I had all of the VPI students in the city. These were young men who had been convicted of rape, had been convicted of murder, had been convicted of first-degree assault. And it's just me, myself, and I leading this effort. When remediation was the language of the day, I spoke of acceleration. We're talking about in 2009. So back then, nobody was accelerating the learning experience. Students in high school were still on semesters. I designed the school into a trimester model. I had students taking original credit through technology means while sitting in the classroom, balancing out their workload for school, their workload for work, being parents, and everything in between. When others expected failure, I celebrated growth. We didn't just shift the narrative, we shattered the narrative. We opened that school with 200 students. By Thanksgiving, we had doubled the school. 400 students. Can you imagine opening up a space for one number and your number doubles in less than 3 months? And we became the #1 requested non-criteria school in the district. Not because we had a fancy building, not because we had all the bells and whistles, because we definitely didn't, but because we had belief. And because I stood up and said, you belong here. That's the power of disruptive leadership. You speak the future even when no one else can see it. You lead with intention, even when the road ahead is uncertain. And you transform lives by refusing to accept limits someone else placed on them. This wasn't just about starting a school. I thought it was then. But as time went on, it was about starting over. Every student I had was starting over. And they were starting over with their dignity, with hope, and with the audacious belief that their story could be rewritten. Just a little segment about one part of my leadership journey. I'm going to pause for a second. And I just want you to think and reflect. What bold vision do you have that deserves your belief this week? You might want to get a piece of paper, a pen. You might want to jot this down, right? Because, I'm a Christian girl. I believe in the Bible. In the Bible, it says, write the vision and make it plain, right? So we have to take those ideas that are up in our heads and those feelings that are in our heart, and we got to put some feet to our faith and write some things down. We got to have a plan. We got to have a strategy. So what bold vision deserves your belief this week? What are you thinking about that you need to validate in making your vision valid? Jot it down. It's easy to believe in something when you have the evidence. But in my circumstance, in that situation, I didn't have the evidence. There was no blueprint. This was the first time a school of that nature was being designed, developed, and implemented in my district. When you're still forming a vision, sometimes all you have is your thoughts and your words. And that's why it's so important to put those things down on paper. But I want you to sit with this for a second. What has been speaking to you lately that's asking for your attention, your belief, or your leadership? What's been tugging at you that needs that type of energy? Write it down. Tag somebody that you might need to share that with. But begin to think about, where have you been putting your energy that you don't need to have it there and you really need to transfer it over to another space? Something that you need to really work on. Something that you're passionate and excited about. Something that you see, but it's not actually there yet. That story I shared with you is a real life example of what it means to envision boldly. And this is the first principle of the EDGE framework. That's from my book, The Disruptive Leader. Visioning isn't just strategic, it's spiritual. Disruptive leaders see beyond what is at that current moment, and they speak to what could be. I had to speak to some young people who had experienced a lot of failure. And not only did they experience failure, they had been in systems that were failing them. But I had to put that energy and effort to speak life and to say, no, you can graduate. You can be the first person in your family to get a high school diploma. Because for most of my students, their family had not been successful in school. And so when we see beyond what is and we speak to what could be, we provide a different level of hope. And in the face of low expectations, we raise the standard, starting with how we see ourselves. So, if you felt this story in your soul, you might need to get your hands on my book, The Disruptive Leader, co-authored by Dr. Kelly M. Dixon, with the insight and foreword by Chris V. Ray, J.D. You're going to get your signed copy, so absolutely, you sure are. That story, a little bit of that story is in the book, and some of our other stories. There's some tools in here, like the EDGE framework that we talk about, that are designed to help you turn your bold vision into bold reality. So, tonight was the first segment of Sanctuary for the Disruptive Soul. I hope that we created some opportunity for you to think and reflect and to get charged up and pumped and ready for the week. Remember, your vision is valid, and you have to keep affirming that. No one gets vision without it having purpose, right? But it's what we do with that vision that gives it purpose. And so I hope on Wednesday at 9 p.m. you join me right back here on IG. We're going to check in on your vision being valid, and are you affirming your vision when we have our disruptive download. This is going to be an opportunity for us to unpack what's working, what's wobbling this week, and how we're leading with intention. Because you know, as soon as you start talking about vision and start talking about being bold and talking about change, you know the Nancy naysayers begin to talk. You know the people who are skeptical begin to always have something to say. And so it's important that as a disruptive leader, you don't wait until Friday to recalibrate, right? You check in on Wednesday, that midweek. Yeah, let's see what's working, what's not working, and then let's reset, and we keep moving forward together. So I hope that you join me on Wednesday, and you continue to join me on this journey. Tag a disruptive leader who needs this message and remind them it's not about what you have. It's about what you believe is possible. I didn't even have the school. All I got was assigned the building. Right? I had to get the children. I had to get the staff. I had to get the partners. Again, there was no legacy. There was no blueprint. So I had to write the vision, and I had to make it plain. And so don't worry about what you have. Worry about what you believe. And how are you using what you believe to move things forward? Because all things are possible to those who believe, right? So before we close out, I want you to drop your leadership word. I told you I was coming back to that. I want you to drop your leadership word. I told you mine is bold. You heard me use that word bold a lot tonight. What leadership word are you focused on this week? What's going to move you forward with your vision and validating your vision? I need you to speak it. I need you to claim it. I need you to lead with it. You might have to get up in that mirror and start talking to yourself. I'm going to be bold this week. I'm going to be bold and intentional this week. Enough, right? And for 2025, I am unbothered, right? I'm unbothered. I'm not going to let all of these other things around me shake me, right? I'm unbothered because I'm pressing forward. So I want to say thank you for being the inaugural group who joined me tonight. Thank you so much for how you are showing up in the spaces that you're in to influence and change. You're not just managing change. You are transforming it. And so know that you are enough, that you matter. You're bold, resilient, and you are doing all the things that need to be done. Your vision is valid. And you're going to continue to affirm that it's valid, even when others can't see what you see. So, I'll be back here on Wednesday at 9 p.m. for the Disruptive Download. And until then, keep leading boldly, keep disrupting the status quo, and keep validating your vision. Until next time, take care.